My name is Louis Zabo. I'm the business manager for Plumbers and Steamfitters Local 50 here in Northwest Ohio, lifelong resident of Northwest Ohio. I support the adoption of this proposed waste confidence rule. We need a safe, secure, and common sense way to store this waste until a permanent facility is available. Many of my members help maintain and service the Davis-Besse Powerhouse in Oak Harbor, and I will say it is one of the safest and most secure job sites there is for them to have an opportunity to work at. Thank you for allowing me to comment tonight.
My name is Victoria Clemens, and I'm here today to voice my opinion on a new concept called consent-based siting approaches that you're moving towards for nuclear waste management facilities, for interim storage, and for a geological repository. The idea of local communities forming partnerships with the implementers under the auspices of a national government appears to be gaining a lot of traction in countries that are opting for voluntary siting. Some version of this idea has been found in Sweden, the UK, and Canada. The only catch here is that there must be a community that has infrastructure, that has real estate, that has a knowledgeable workforce, that has educated citizens, that understand both science and risk. I'm not sure that that community exists at all. In the UK, as well as in Canada, the nuclear waste leadership role has been removed from the scientists and being handed to prominent citizens and using philosophical and social science knowledge to gain their approvals. Upon a formal adoption of any new policies, then implementation is done by another authority. The U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission, the regulators, the stakeholders all seem to be waiting on the sidelines as Canada is inching closer to a deep geological repository in the next few months. The entrance to that repository is less than 1/2 mile from Lake Huron, and the possibility of radioactive contamination of Lake Huron and other waters downstream, including Lake Erie, Lake Ontario, and the St. Lawrence River, are frightening. In Kincardine, Ontario, approximately 8,000 voters approved to host such a facility. And you call it voluntaristic siting. But the definition of a community for this planned burial requires the engagement and acceptance of 40 million other people that live on the Great Lakes, that live, work, eat, and drink from the Great Lakes. Consent-based management in this instance is a failure, and it's sitting on an international body of fresh water, the largest in the world. I have been working with my county commissioners. I am thankful that they are here and keeping themselves informed, Mr. Sass, Mr. Arndt, and Ms. Regal. I hope that my hometown, Port Clinton, Ohio, will be the third Ohio city to pass a resolution opposing the Canadian dump. Yeah. And any dump on the Great Lakes watershed. The Lake Erie Caucus of the Ohio House of State Representatives will be writing a resolution soon. Anyone in Ohio, please contact your state rep to approve this message. At this time, I also would like to discuss...
I'm going to have to ask you to wrap up for us, Victoria.
Rolling stewardship of radioactive mess we made should not be an option, it is a requirement. This requirement is best stopped by stopping production of nuclear waste, and the second would be hardened on-site storage. Hardened on-site storage has been endorsed by hundreds of environmental groups, and densely packed, vulnerable, high-level radioactive waste storage pools that are at risk for fire and radioactive releases should be emptied onto on-site dry cast storage that is hardened, that is designed and built well, safeguarded against accidents, and fortified against attacks, and protected against leakage into the environment.
Thank you.
And thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jessica Mosquena. Ladies and gentlemen of the NRC and the public, as a young person, I need to say to you, I have no confidence in the NRC's radioactive waste policy. For the many generations to come, I am angry that I get to inherit, along with my future children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and so on, and so on, and so on, and so on, the problem of deadly, permanent nuclear waste. Nuclear waste, as we all know, comes from reactors. This is an unnatural type of energy. The further we move away from natural types of energy, like wind, solar, geothermal, hydro, the more consequences that we are going to have. The enormous consequence of the most deadly man-made material on the planet is what we are faced with when we have nuclear energy. We cannot relicense or license any more reactors. We don't know what to do with the 76,000 plus tons in this country alone. We have nowhere to put this. The mass transportation of nuclear waste is a threat to the public. You cannot transport nuclear waste without accidents or spills. You cannot guarantee the public's safety while doing so with this protecting people and the environment mission statement that you have. The probability of accidents are not low, as you say in your DGEIS, which Connie so greatly put it, has no substance, and it's been designed that way. It is inaccurate to say that the probability of accidents are low and dismiss it like this, because the consequences of the accidents are not low. Look at 3 Mile Island, look at Chernobyl, look at Fukushima. One nuclear accident can wipe out half the globe. To quote Yablokov and Nestorenko's book on the catastrophe of Chernobyl, that's one nuclear accident, such as the ongoing disaster of Fukushima Daiichi, with all of its spent nuclear fuel rods that are 1,000,000 times more radioactive than when we put them in the core. This can wipe out the globe. This is not science fiction. This is the reality that we are dealing with. And this is the insane risk that we are taking when we allow the reactors to operate and produce radioactive waste. If you hold up to your mission statement, then you would see that nuclear energy is immoral. We are killing people with this type of energy. We are causing DNA mutations. We are causing horrific birth defects. Please research them. We are causing infertility, heart problems, immune deficiencies, and cancer, especially among the youngest of our population. That is immoral. Nuclear energy is an incalculable danger to the whole of creation for historic and geological ages. It is a transgression against life itself. It is infinitely more serious than any crime perpetrated by man. Nuclear energy is an ethical, spiritual, and metaphysical monstrosity. It means conducting economic affairs as if people didn't matter. And you will be seeing me again, I'm sure.
I'm liking the words that the NRC are throwing around. Confidence, I feel better, don't you? This new green program, decontamination, recycling, which is real special, harmonize, water down. A few things stick out in my mind. One of this recycling things says in 2012 alone, bicycle baskets tissue holders, pet food bowls that were constructed unknowingly with radioactive metals were pulled from the US global markets. Isn't that nice? It was unknowing. So it's floating around, nobody knows where the hell it's going, but whatever, that's cool. So they're going to handle all the contamination of large nuclear equipment. Millions of pounds of metal can be reused, and it's already secured 2 large contracts, this new green, and has plans for future development. So there's jobs there. I live in Cleveland. I worked on the Davis Bessie campaign with Ohio Citizen Action from the beginning to the end of that campaign. I also know about First Energy, I call them Worst Energies, safety problems, and they're called culture of safety. Culture of safety, that's special. And I also know very well about the goings on inside the plant. I'm not going to repeat all the stuff because you guys are on it, and I love you all for coming out. I'm just going to touch on the subject of nuclear power plants are huge plutonium factories. Electricity is a byproduct. It's not the other way around. And there's a lot of environmental racism going on, which nobody's mentioned, going on with the uranium. Because if you notice, the open pits in the Navajo country, Africa, the mineral conflicts in the Congo, I mean, it just goes on and on and on and on. And even in their own statement, they mention the communities of color and low income as actually looking closer at the contamination, how it's affected. Why, you know? Okay, so you just can't trust them. What about depleted uranium? Does anybody know about depleted uranium? Our soldiers are being irradiated. You're just getting blasted with this stuff. And we're spreading it all over the planet. All over. And in Iraq, babies are being born with 2 heads and eyes in the center of their forehead. It's a nightmare. So this is also a product of this industry. And it goes into the war machine. No more war. Let's stop this crap. We don't want it.
Hi, my name is Beatrice Tolles. I'm here also representing the citizens of Earth. I find it really ironic that you've changed your name to the Waste Confidence Directorate. It rings a little too true to the Clean Air Initiative. With a dwindling EPA, corporate greed seems to always win. You guys, your industry, can't win this one. We have to. At 9 years old, I received a presidential award for environmental activism for saving a river system in Fairfield, Connecticut. All I had to do was ride my banana-seated bike with a sign and get my teacher on board. To have Gerald Ford bring me to Washington and thank me. The Mill River is now an Audubon sanctuary, and now I'm getting emotional, so I don't have a clue what I'm going to say. I find it ironic that now, to save the water, I have to get arrested. I find it ironic and disgusting that the NRC can, in the face of what I've lived through, 3 Mile Island. My father worked for General Electric. The year we moved to Ohio, the Perry spent rods were a problem. My dad and mine's relationship ended when I was 13 and I was protesting at the Perry plant against General Electric. I find it ironic and disgusting that we have an entire ocean right now in trouble. We have children on the west coast of California that are at major risk for thyroid issues. And they're testing positive in the milk for nuclear radiation, and the tuna that we all like, and the sushi we all like, really shouldn't be eaten ever again. I find it really ironic and disgusting that we have to, as citizens, come before you again, and again, and again, and again. Our water is our lives. Okay? Water is life. Your bodies are made out of it. The planet depends upon it, and yet we are having these conversations over and over and over. Your dystopian bullshit. For the Waste Confidence Directorate, that Aldous Huxley could have loved this. He would have eaten this up, Mr. Director of the God knows what you call yourselves these days. It's got to stop. We are at a period in world history where we are ruining the water, between the fracking industry, going into our water tables all over this country and all over the world. And now this, on the largest body of fresh water, you are talking about more? Really? Really? We're done if it continues. And you all will be to blame, not me. But I'll be equally as dead, as will my son and my children and my grandchildren and everyone else's. Because this stuff, it needs to be contained, and you need to stop producing it. We need to contain it on site, but not at Perry on top of a nuclear fault line, for God's sakes. Who brain surgeon that built that? God only knows. At 24, I found out that I'm Native American. I met my birth mother. My father's people were Cree, and they came up with a statement, and I'd like to say it now. When will you all realize you cannot breathe, eat, or drink money? We need to come up with better, sustainable energy solutions that will provide jobs, that will ensure our children's future into 7 generations, that will stop the stupid mental masturbation of these hearings in perpetuity, to bring about a change of good news. Because when there is a solar spill, we just have a nice day. And I want you all to have nice days ahead of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Good evening. I'm Alicia Rivers from Columbus, Ohio. And I'd like to take a long and generic view tonight by going back to a myth that we know was first written down 2,500 years ago. And I am going to use the word Pandora, but let's not confuse that with the most recent Pandora's Promise. This is the Pandora who was fashioned by Greek gods who wanted to punish humans for having discovered fire and made good use of it. And what Pandora made the mistake of doing was opening the bottle of the gifts that the gods had given her, which were really to be punishments for humankind. We seem to have found one of those gifts in nuclear energy. And we seem to be reaping the consequences as punishment. But not all of us realize that it is punishment yet. It's happening slowly to our species as our genes are damaged, as we find ourselves afflicted with diseases that, they can't quite put their fingers on the causes of. Those are the kinds of consequences, I would use that word today, for what we're undergoing as a result of these gifts of nuclear energy. In the Pandora myth, she ended up keeping hope. She did not release hope from her jar when she let out all of the consequences, the punishments that were held inside that jar. And there's always been some ambiguity in interpretation of what it means that the hope was not released. Does it mean that hope has been held captive? Or does it mean that there is hope to be had in that jar still? I would say that when the NRC, which is tasked to protect people and the environment, does things like saying that the environmental impacts of continued storage are generically addressed and will not be revisited in future site-specific licensing proceedings, that is holding hope captive in ways that we'll still be regretting and suffering from generations upon generations from now. And so, Pandora is still with us. And I don't know how we can continue to leave in the hands of people who do not have humanity's best interests always at heart the future of our species.
Thank you. Thank you very much.